Hi,
Hi,
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
How big is this group tonight?
This group is very small. So normally, I usually have maybe 125, 150 people at my workshops because they're free. And this one, as you know, I charge $10. And that really cut down the amount of people. So maybe we'll see 10 people tonight.
Wow.
You'll get a good private. It's basically like your own private session is what you're getting. So I'm kind of excited to actually be able to see faces and have interactions when it's that big. I don't really get to talk to people. So there's something that's definitely lost that way. It's 7 o'clock. I want to wait just a couple more minutes because I know that there are other people like this person who just showed up. I want to just give a couple more minutes. Um, and then I have a full evening of information for you that I certainly hope will be worth your $10, if not more. And then and then you can ask all the questions that you want as well. Um, so I think we had maybe 13 people, 14 people register. Um, so again, we'll just wait like another minute or two. I'm gonna share my screen just so you can kind of see uh, the beginning of what we're going to be doing. And then also that will give me a chance to, I think you can see my screen now. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay, great. So I'll cover some of this, but at the bottom, uh, I created a digital worksheet that you can use to help create a going to sleep routine based on what we're going to talk about later on in the workshop. I'm going to put up this link again later on in case you want to download it at that point. But if you'd like to get a head start on it, you certainly can. Now you can either scan the QR code or just type in bit.ly/going to sleep. And that'll open up a Google Doc and you can then download it for yourself. And we'll go over it together later on. I don't want you to have to worry about it now, but it'll just save you a little bit of effort later on if you want. So I'm going to just start with the basics, and then hopefully by the time we get started with everything, whoever else is going to join is going to join, and we'll get going. So again, as I mentioned briefly earlier, normally the workshops that I do are free, and they are much bigger, and I do them through Zoom's webinar format, which means I actually can't see faces, and no one can talk or like ask questions or anything like that. So they have to do that all through like the Q&A feature. This is going to be nice because it's just a small group of us, which also means if you have a question and you like to get an answer, you can just like raise your hand or interrupt or whatever it is and ask away. And particularly what I was really hoping for with a small group like this was being able to do a little bit more personalization of some of the challenges you might be facing and brainstorming ideas that might be able to help. So yeah, I know it cuts both ways. A small group can feel maybe a little uncomfortable for people who want to be a little more in the background. On the flip side, you get more interaction and I can make it a little bit more personalized for you. So hopefully you'll find the second one is a little bit more what you're looking for tonight, and we'll kind of go from there. The so we'll take care of questions as we go on, or you can wait to the end, whatever's easiest for you. The the content of my workshop should be in the neighborhood of like 55 minutes or so without questions. We'll see. And then there'll be questions, there'll be other things that we'll go over. If we end before 90 minutes, I don't know if anyone will be upset, but and certainly if we go over 90 minutes and you have questions, I will stay as long as you want to answer as many questions as I can. You can use the chat feature, though again, there's a small group of us, so that's up to you. Tomorrow, I will send out the recording as well as the slide deck that I'll walk you through. And I'll send you the link again to this document just in case you didn't get it tonight. And then maybe a couple of other things that I usually send out after a workshop for you. So if you don't want to worry about taking notes or anything like that, you'll get all of this tomorrow. I usually can get it done in the morning. So if you don't receive something by midday, you can just reach out to me directly. And if you want to, I'm not going to ask you to introduce yourself verbally, but if you want to share, who you are and where you're from in the chat, you're welcome to do so. Any questions before I start? Great. Okay. Well, then let's get going. So we're going to talk about, oh, sorry, one second. Let me reposition y'all so that uh I can see a little bit better. Uh okay. So we're going to talk about sleep. The main thing that we're going to talk about sleep is I'm going to really focus on what you do during the day that can help you sleep better at night. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I'll do this quickly. I'm a social worker. I have a license, a master social worker. I have a master's in family therapy. I'm a certified life coach. I do a lot of writing. I've written a book called Fatherhood in 40-Minute Snapshots. My memoir, In My Rearview Mirror, is coming out next year, which I am very excited and also nervous about. I facilitate workshops on things like this, self-care, overcoming trauma, as well as using AI for your mental health. And I have a Psychology Today column on that particular topic where I talk about using AI for interactive journaling and other sort of mental health tools. And I will go over this a little bit later, but I have a mental health starter pack that's basically a collection of 3 guides that you can choose from that are free if you want. I'll give you the links to those at the end. Okay, now that you have some sense of who I am, let's get going. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I'm barely going to spend any time tonight talking about the importance of sleep. I feel like you probably have a good understanding of why sleep is important. I'm not going to really talk about what time you should go to bed or anything like that. A lot of that stuff is already out there and easily accessible. I do want to mention the fact that like there are reasons why we have trouble when we don't sleep, and that's because the lack of sleep causes so many challenges for us. Our emotional triggers, right? The things that activate us, that cause us challenges, cause us difficulty, are so much worse. Even small problems can feel like they're really insurmountable. It's harder to do self-care practices. Our brain function, decision-making abilities, our judgment becomes much more difficult, and even our health begins to suffer. Our immune system weakens, and it's easier for us to get sick. So there are a lot of good reasons to try sleep and to try and improve our sleep and do what we can. And what I'm going to do tonight is walk you through some of the science behind the problems you might have sleeping, and then also what you can do about it. And we'll end the evening by building your own going to sleep routine so that you'll have a list of options to kind of think through of what might be able to help you, as well as what you can do when it doesn't work, right? Nothing's perfect. So there are going to be times where you have trouble sleeping. And so I'll include a series of things that you can do when that happens as well. So the main thing I really want to cover tonight is thinking about sleep from a new perspective. And what I mean by that is that I think, and the research suggests, that sleep starts during the day. That if you want to get a good night's sleep, we need to do a better job of managing the way we are during the day. And a big part of that is implementing self-care practices throughout the day, not just in the evening. And another thing I want you to think about is that, sleep is is hard. It is not something that we really have full control over. And because of that, sometimes it is out of our control. And sometimes we will have bad nights. And there are a couple things. One, just because we have a bad night's sleep doesn't mean we're doing something wrong. But oftentimes, what it means is maybe it's a message that our body is sending us to say, hey, something is off. Today was harder than I thought it was. Maybe, or tomorrow is something that I'm even more concerned about than I thought I was. Whatever it may be, it's really helpful to think about sleep in terms of not a failure of being able to sleep, but as a message from your body to say, hey, we need to do something extra to take care of ourselves. So I created a poll, and let's see if I can get this going. So I've launched a poll for you. There are a few questions. If you don't mind just sort of filling them out, and then we'll kind of talk about the answers and go into the rest of the workshop. Can you see the poll? Yeah, okay, great. So if you just joined, we're just filling out a poll. I don't know if you can see it on your screen. Hopefully you can. Just go ahead and answer what you're honestly experiencing, and hopefully we'll cover a bunch of these during the workshop tonight. Yeah, racing thoughts. We'll definitely be talking about those tonight. Oh, and replaying things I said or didn't do. Yep. This is great. So staying asleep seems like it's the biggest challenge, not so much falling asleep. That's interesting. That's good to know. So I'll make sure to at the end we'll talk a little bit more about things you can do when you wake up in the middle of the night. I see most of you don't have a clear wind down routine, so that's something that we'll talk about. You'll hopefully walk away with that tonight, which will be great. I love it. To wake up feeling more restored. Yes, I completely understand that. Okay, so it looks like there's one person that didn't do it. That person may very well could be me. Who knows? So I'm gonna end the poll. I'm gonna just move it to the side, really. And let's get going. And then hopefully we'll refer back to a lot of that stuff. So what I really want to focus on tonight is the nervous. I'm going to mention your nervous system a lot. I'm going to talk about why it's important. And I'm not going to get too technical into it, but I just want you to have enough of an understanding so that you can see how everything else, in terms of the science and the recommendations that I'm making tonight, will help you with your nervous system. So, real simple, it's your body's command center. That's the whole communication network. It coordinates everything that you do from both things that you choose to do consciously and things that you don't consciously choose to do. So, that's me moving my hands, me communicating. Those are the more conscious voluntary movements. The automatic functions like breathing, like your heart rate, like digestion, those are not things you consciously normally do. That is something that happens automatically. Our nervous system is constantly scanning for safety or danger, and it's looking for those signals and it's interpreting those signals from that perspective. So when it feels safe, it rests, it can connect, it can think clearly, right? And when it senses threat, it shifts into this protection mode. And that's that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And we're going to talk a lot about that activation throughout this workshop. There are two modes of your autonomic nervous system. And again, that's like, right, these are the parts of you that happen involuntarily. These are the things that you don't necessarily control, like your heart rate, like your breathing and digestion. And I just thought it would be an interesting thing to share. The average person takes approximately 20 to 25,000 breaths per day. And think about how few of those are you consciously aware of. And so that's something we're going to talk about some more as well. So there's really two parts of your autonomic nervous system. One is the sympathetic nervous system, and think of that as like your body's accelerator, the activator. That's responsible for the fight or flight response. So if you have a problem, if you're in a position of danger, a situation of danger, or perceived situation of danger, your sympathetic nervous system is what switches on and it ignites and it lights up your nervous system and it gets you ready for whatever's happening. The problem is, this is a great tool. This is a great service that our body provides ourselves. The problem is that it's easily activated. So going from one meeting to the next, going from one activity to the next, doing one call from call to this to that, this kind of go, go, go attitude that we tend to have during the day, all of that activates our sympathetic nervous system. And by doing that, we're essentially turning on our fight or flight response. And so that makes it very hard for us to be able to calm down. The parasympathetic nervous system is essentially the opposite. That's our body's slow down system. That's the break, right? That's the rest and digest. This is what helps us slow down and calm down and actually helps us get into a place of being able to sleep at night. As you can imagine, the key is we spend most of our time with our sympathetic nervous system activated. And what we really need is to be able to activate our parasympathetic nervous system more, particularly as we're thinking about sleep. This is exactly what we're going to talk about today. The example that I think I found that really seems to help people understand this concept is that your nervous system is like a speeding train. So most people go full speed all day long and then expect to stop instantly at night. And when your nervous system is going constantly all the time, trying to slam on the brakes at night is very jarring, right? If you think about the way you see in a movie where they slam on the brakes of a speeding train, right? It's jarring. People are jerking forward. There's that horrible sound, right? It is not meant to be run like that. A speeding train isn't, neither is our nervous system. And so this is what happens when you lay down at night after having spent all day in this activated fight or flight mode. Your mind doesn't know that it's time to stop. It's still in that fight or flight mode. So it's still going and it's looking for what's next. What do we need to be worried about? What's next? What do we need to be aware of? Should we need to prepare for this? Should we get ready for that? Right? Your brain is still going. And that's why, even though you stopped moving, your mind is still racing. And so, again, this is where we need to really think about how do we consciously transition from our sympathetic to our parasympathetic systems. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the research that's involved into why we have trouble sleeping. There are two main things on this one that I want to talk about. One is emotional distress, and the other is hyperarousal, and they are, of course, connected. it's really clear, excuse me one second as I let somebody else in. It's really clear that unresolved emotional distress contributes to our sense of being in a hyperarousal state. So the problem is everything that we do during the day is not just an activity, but it impacts us. The way we interpret it, the way we understand it, the way we feel we experience it, that becomes this emotional interactions that we haven't processed. And by moving so quickly through the day, we don't give ourselves time to process that. So these unresolved emotional experiences, some of them are good, some of them are bad, but they're unresolved. We're just carrying them with us. And that activates our nervous system. In addition to just living a life of stress, right? So one of the keys is this, as they say, is the slow dissolving of emotional distress. That's what helps us reduce hyperarousal. And so what does that mean? It means us experiencing our emotions. It's being connected to our feelings. It's being able to understand, oh, that was a difficult experience for me. Okay, I need to just kind of be with that for a little bit and then be able to move on to what's next instead of just carrying it all from experience to experience. And then you can see why downshifting from worries and high activation throughout the day is key to slowing down our nervous system in the evening. There are these four elements of your nervous system that, or the four symptoms of problems of sleep that emanate from challenges with our nervous system. And so obviously a lot of you already mentioned the racing thoughts, right? I've kind of explained where I think that comes from, but it's that rumination, it's the worrying, right? It's the I need to be prepared for whatever's next, right? That cognitive activity that happens when we're in this fight or flight mode that makes it very difficult for us to sleep. Hyperarousal is not just the racing thoughts, it's the whole physical body experience, that sense of being wired, of being activated, right? This higher level of alertness, which is what happens when we're in this fight or flight mode, when we're experiencing stress, when our nervous system senses, in reality, whether it's real or not, this perceived sense of danger. What it does is it goes into this heightened alerted state. And that's very challenging for us. And it's a real big component to struggling with sleep, with insomnia. Another challenge that happens with our nervous system is our nervous system is meant to have a certain rhythm to it, right? The circadian rhythm, right? The sleep-wake cycle. And what happens is if we're not consistent, and I don't mean like going to bed at 10:01 every evening, but I mean if you go into sleep at 10 o'clock and then you're going to sleep the next night at 12 and the next night at 2 and the next night at 11 and then not, right? Like that inconsistency is upsetting for your nervous system. It's hard for it to maintain that rhythm. And so we just want to be aware of that. And then for some people, the nervous system is just more hyper aware of smaller things like light or comfort or, excuse me, stimulants or screen time or whatever it happens to be. And if that is something that you're experiencing, you want to be extra aware of how those experiences impact you because it may be that, like, for instance, I don't worry too much about using my phone at night. I'll talk to you a little bit more about how I do that and what kind of rules I set up for myself. But like, I know that the screen doesn't keep me awake. But for some people, it does. And so that's something you'd want to think about. How do you deal with that? What do you do instead, etc. So that's kind of where you're like just adapting sleep practices to your needs comes into play. So you can see the key to getting a good night's sleep is going to be turning off this on guard switch. It's being able to let our nervous system know, hey, we're safe. We don't have to be on guard. We don't have to be worried about what's happening next. It's okay for us to wind down, to pause, to calm down and get some rest. Because otherwise, what happens is, right, we in that go, go, go all day long, our brain is still stuck in that mode. And even though there's nothing left on our calendar and we're safe in our homes, we're still waiting for what's next. We're still on guard. So we have to really make more of an effort to turn that switch off. And I want to talk about four key tools the research really helps explain that'll to be able to transition from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic nervous system. And again, just simply being to be able to turn off the on guard switch, the fight flight response, and be able to allow ourselves to calm down. As I go through these, I want you to be thinking about two components that I think are key to helping yourself get a better night's sleep. One is managing your speed during the day. And the way I think about this is I think about station stops, right? A train that doesn't have any station stops picks up speed and it just keeps speeding along. But if you implement station stops during the day, pauses during your day, where you're doing something that's intentional for yourself, your train will never get up to that high level of speed and it'll be much more manageable. And then the second thing to think about is allowing yourself enough braking distance. And I mean enough wind down time at night to be able to slowly pull your train into the station of sleep. I may have beaten that metaphor a little too much there, but I think you understand what I'm saying. So let's go to those four things. So first, we're going to talk about mindfulness. Mindfulness is probably the most valuable thing you could do for yourself, like in the world. It's just going to be, there's so many benefits from it. And in fact, one of the free guides that I'll show you later on is about like if you want to get started with mindfulness. I am no mindfulness expert by any stretch, but I have experience with it, and I certainly have helped other people get started. And I just have a really simple guide that will help you kind of find a way to get your foot in the door and try it and see if you like it. One of the important ways of thinking about mindfulness is not just the like stereotypical clearing of your mind. It's really about being present and being aware. And the way that Buddhism thinks about it, that I really love, is that you think about your thoughts and your feelings as a river. And when you're standing in the middle of that river, your thoughts and feelings can knock you around. Sometimes they can be so strong they knock you over, right? It's hard to maintain a sense of balance and clarity when you're constantly dealing with that stream of thoughts and emotions. If you're able to just stand to the side, step on the bank a little bit, and watch as they flow by, you're still aware, you're still connected, but you're not as impacted by them. And that's a big part of what mindfulness does for you. And because it does that, it reduces brain reactivity. So the amygdala, which is that back of your brain, right? That's where the fight or flight reflex stems from. That's where it's triggered. That's our fear center, right? Mindfulness reduces that, which, as you can imagine, is very helpful when you're trying to turn off that fight or flight switch. It boosts emotional stability. So it enhances the prefrontal cortex, which is the front part of our brain. That's the like more logical, more evolved part of our brain. And it helps us better manage our emotions. It does help quiet racing thoughts. And that's something I know a lot of you talked about. And one of the ways that it does this is by it helps us with what I like to think about as just like cognitive management, right? When we have these racing thoughts, our brains are just going so fast. The term that I've always used in my own mind is like my brain eats itself. It's just like gnawing on itself. It's just so hard to like get out of it. Mindfulness allows you to take that step back, kind of see what's happening and realize, oh, look at that. I'm ruminating. Okay. Well, so that's great. I'm ruminating. Let's put that to the side for a moment and let's get back to what I'm trying to do. And so just that ability of having that slight step back and awareness to be able to notice what's happening to us can make such a big difference in being able to manage that, the intrusive thoughts, the rumination, things like that. And then I'm going to talk about micro pauses. And on all four of these on research ideas, what I want to emphasize is how to use them in what I'm calling these station stops. And I'll talk more about that to really break it down. But think about it this way, a micro pause, right? So your nervous system is moving so quickly. Anytime that we can do a micro pause where we can take a breath, literally take a breath, pause, do something, let ourselves calm down for a moment before we move on to what's next, that will help our nervous system slow down a little bit. And that's really what we're focused on. The second one is movement, and this is both exercise and um, just just stretching and moving of your body. So certainly there are real benefits to exercise. It regulates cortisol and our circadian rhythm, which we've talked about, right? Cortisol is our body's stress hormone. So as you can imagine, exercise helps regulate that so that helps us to be less stressed. And it reinforces a healthy sleep-wake cycle, which is the circadian rhythm. It improves mood and reduces tension. So it releases essentially good chemicals while it alleviates the stress chemicals in our body. So it reduces tension and it makes us just feel a little bit better. It helps us with our sleep and it gets us a better rest. Something to think about during the day is, right, you may not be able to stop for an hour exercise, but maybe it's a gentle movement. Maybe it's a little bit of stretching. Maybe it's just walking around your office or your home to take a break. Maybe it's you are moving physically from one activity to another. So it's, sitting in the car before your next errand and letting your body slow down a little bit and just focusing on yourself. The third one is my favorite, and this is nature. Excuse me. Huh. I am 100% all in on nature right now. I'm living in nature as much as I can, and I'm really enjoying the heck out of it. There are also so many benefits to nature, and they're actually quite similar to mindfulness. It calms that stress response. So again, it lowers the cortisol, it lowers the stress hormones, chemicals in our body, and it helps signal our body that we're safe. So it combats that fight or flight response, which particularly for me, that's why I'm really using it. It quiets overthinking again, so it helps reduce that rumination and the racing thoughts. It boosts our ability to rest and digest. Again, it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. I think you can see how this is all kind of coming together, right? And when you think about micro moments for nature, right? So certainly that can be looking outside. I am very fortunate. I have nature outside. So just looking outside can be really calming. Sometimes just taking a short, even 10-minute walk or something, 5-minute walk. But honestly, even just looking at a lovely picture of a sunset or a lovely picture of if you like birds or whatever it is, that can also just be calming. It can give you a few seconds of, and that's what we're trying to introduce more of during your day. The fourth one may surprise you. It's about connection. So it's about our ability to be connected and feel connected to others. Part of that is because loneliness is a real challenge for many people, and loneliness is a significant cause towards sleeping issues as well as things like depression, which also causes sleeping issues. Connecting with others activates oxytocin, right? So another of these beneficial chemicals that are produced in our body, which calms our nervous system and creates a sense of safety. When we're connecting with people on a regular basis, sometimes our nervous systems actually synchronize together. So it allows us to co-regulate our stress, our collective stress, and that shared stress idea is easier than for everybody. And I talked a little bit about loneliness already. And so micro connections, when we think about that, it's just check-ins. It's sending a text to someone in the middle of the day. It's being grateful that you have someone to reach out to. It's sharing a meme or whatever it is, just a moment of laughter or connection, just as a small reminder that you're not alone, you're not dealing with this crazy world by yourself, that there are other people with you. So I've talked about station stops a number of times, and I really want to kind of get into the specifics of what I mean by that. And so a station stop, from my perspective, if our nervous system is a speeding train, then we need to be implementing station stops. We need to have these moments during the day where we're telling our nervous system it's okay to slow down, it's even okay to stop and pause and focus on ourselves again. Part of the challenge of this go, go, go attitude and this busy schedule, this hectic schedule that so many of us have, is that it doesn't leave us a lot of time to focus on our experience and what we need and what is happening to us. And so we're carrying stuff with us, right? And so thinking about station stops, these are these intentional pauses. And I'm not talking about an hour, I'm not even talking about 30 minutes, though if you can do that, awesome. I'm talking about a minute or two where you take a real break in between tasks and do something that's helpful to turning off the fight flight reflex and turning on your parasympathetic nervous system. One of the keys to doing this is beginning to build your sense of self-awareness. It's really important to listen to your body's cues. What is your body telling you? Because I think there are a lot of moments in our day where we're in this moment in between, and I'm going to talk about transitions in a moment, where we're kind of in between activities. And so we think, oh, we could take a break or we could just keep pushing forward. And I think often we just push forward. And I think if we can catch those moments and feel, oh wait, my body is saying I just need a couple minutes of rest, or I need I need to take a breath, or I need to just stand up and move around, or whatever it is, right? To be able to be aware, connected to our bodies and our minds to know that we might need something. The challenge, of course, is that, we have this sense of being still means we're not being productive, that we're not being effective. And that's why I'm trying to really emphasize we're not talking about 1 to 2 minutes. I mean, we're not talking about an hour or two. We're talking about 1 to 2 minutes. We're talking about short breaks during the day that will actually rejuvenate you, that will allow you to continue to be productive, but also to be able to keep your nervous system in check and then be able to sleep a little bit better in the evening. One of the biggest problems, and I've touched on this already, but one of the biggest problems with this kind of rushing impulse that we have is that we're taking the experience of whatever we just had and we're bringing it to the next thing. So we just had a meeting, it added a couple things on our to-do list, or someone said something kind of obnoxious or cut us off or didn't hear us at all or whatever it was. And we're bringing that into our next meeting, our next activity. And then something happens there and we're bringing both of those into the next activity, but without any time to kind of process and realize, oh, wait a second, that's really bothering me. I need to give myself a few minutes to process that and deal with it, right? That's that unresolved emotional distress I talked about earlier. So creating these pauses allows you to process a little bit and lets things helps avoid things from building up too much, which then make it really difficult for us in the evening. So really we're talking about transitions, and transitions are just we have dozens of them throughout the day, right? We leave a meeting, but before we're doing the next meeting, we're um we're sorry, we're leaving a meeting, we're going to the next meeting, we've just sent an important message and we're already starting the next thing we want to do, or we just got off a call, or we finished a task, whatever it is, right? There are always these moments of transitions between when one thing ends and another thing begins. To me, these are these natural points in your day where you can create little station stops. And station stops really are essentially converting those transitions into real intentional pauses that help manage your nervous system better. So, some real world examples: deep breathing. So you can take 5 deep breaths And I'm actually going to go through in the next slide, I'm going to go through three breathing activities with you, and we'll do one together. So there's deep breathing, there's gentle movement, right? So there's stretching, there's getting up and just taking a walk around the office, or, there's, after I finish something, I'm like, whew, okay. And I will just take a walk around. I work at home. I'll just take a walk around my living room. It's not exactly an hour-long walk, right? But it's enough to just, okay, I've stepped away. I feel like I've stepped away. I give myself a chance to kind of process what's happened, and I can either come back or I'll make it a little bit longer if I can. There's an environmental shift, right? That's whether that's opening your window for fresh air, maybe it's stepping outside, maybe it's just looking out a window, whatever it is to just feel a little bit more connected to something that's bigger than yourself. I also really like just taking a moment to acknowledge what you've already done. We don't do that enough. It's always about what we still have left to do. So taking some time to just reflect on, like, okay, so I got this done and I got this done and I got this done. That's great. I know I've got other stuff to do, but like this was good and I needed to get those done. And it's nice to have that taken care of. Being able to just take a moment to reflect on that, to kind of congratulate yourself on successes is always really helpful. And it's also helps relieve the stress that you've been feeling. And then there's also visual cues that you can use. So photos of like a favorite vacation, or you can see I have, this is a photo of um, a really wild tree that I recently saw. The sunset before of the sun, the photo of the sunset, like that's a photo that I took. Like I use those photos all the time in order to just help me feel this brief moment of peace, of calm, right? That may not work for you, but it may be something else. Maybe it's your kids, maybe it's your family, maybe it's, I don't know, right? So I'm going to talk about three breathing exercises, and then we'll do one of them together. But these are things that you can use for a station stop. So the first one I touched on briefly earlier. You inhale for 5 seconds, you exhale for 7 seconds, and then you repeat. Excuse me. The other option is box breathing. So box breathing is just kind of like you're breathing in the shape of a box. So you inhale for 4, you hold for 4, you exhale for 4, you hold for 4, and then you repeat. Or you can just simply count your breaths. So you can inhale, exhale, and silently count 1, and then do that again. In this third option, it's good to exhale longer than you inhale, because that cues your nervous system that, oh, we don't need as much oxygen. It helps it to understand, oh, we don't need to be activated. That danger is over, right? That's partly why we get into hyperventilating situations, is because we're trying to get as much oxygen into our blood in order for our adrenaline to be able to work, right? Because our nervous system has been activated. So we're literally telling our body the exact opposite. So let's do the option one, the 5/7 one first. So what I'll do is for the first couple, I'll count the seconds out for you. I'll inhale and exhale. And then for the last few, I'll let you do those on your own and you can do it quietly. Everybody ready? Yes? No? Okay, great. Okay, so we're going to inhale for 5 seconds, exhale for 7 seconds. So you ready? Okay, inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Inhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 6. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, how did that feel? Could you feel a difference between just a couple seconds ago? It tends to be just a nice reminder that even though we're not consciously breathing for 20 to 25,000 times a day, that when we do focus on our breath, that it does make a difference. It does just help us feel a little bit more slowed down. And that was just, you know, 7 breaths, I think. So imagine what would happen if you did that for like a full minute or two. Okay, so really what we've talked about so far are the station stops. What you could do during the day to help manage your nervous system so that you're not letting your speeding train get too out of control. Implementing station stops, allowing yourself to slow down at moments during the day. And now what we're going to focus on is building this braking distance, right? Building a wind down routine that allows you to be able to really pull into bedtime with at a much more calmer and peaceful place. I know this seems like a strange place to start, but it's really important to think about how safe and comfortable do you feel in your bedroom? And part of that is just like, what about your pillows? What about your blankets? What about your pajamas? Like, how do all of those things actually feel to you? Do you put on your pajamas and think, oh, I hate these, right? Because we want to try and just think about any little improvement that we can make during your going to bed routine that will help you feel a little bit better, right? So I have certain like shirts I wear that just make me feel better, whether it's a favorite sports team or some sort of like vacation spot I've been to or whatever it is, right? Like, so equating it with just little things like that, adding a bit more meaning to these things. Maybe it's something a partner gave you that you really like, whatever it is, right? Thinking about like how does it make you feel? And again, also just your sheets, your blankets. How do they feel for you? Do you like them? Do they bring you any sort of joy? Another thing to really think about in terms of your bedroom, though, is, and this is something I learned firsthand, was I used to live in a house, and in the bedroom there was a corner area near my nightstand, and it just always collected junk. And I like the way that I make it like it collected junk, as if I didn't actually put any junk there at all. It just magically happened, but it just always seemed to get junk. And one weekend, I was just like, oh, I'm just going to clean this up. And I felt like just a little bit better that night when I went to bed. And ever since then, that's gotten me really thinking about like how my room is situated. And again, it's not that, the difference between a horrible night's sleep and a great night's sleep was the fact that I cleaned up that corner of my bedroom, but that anything that I do that helps my nervous system feel calmer, feel better, feel safer is going to help me sleep a little bit. And if I get a bunch of those things going, which is really what a good wind down routine does, is it gets a bunch of these little things that help you feel better and safer together. It it builds up enough that you end up having a good night's sleep. One thing I do want to caution you about is working in your bedroom. I know some people do that. If you have a one-bedroom apartment or a studio apartment and you have no choice, that's different. I'll get to that in a second. But if you can avoid working in your bedroom, don't work in your bedroom. You really want to associate being in your bedroom as a safe place, as a uh, place where you feel comfortable and ready to fall asleep. And working there is not going to create that kind of association. If you do, does anyone here have just a one bedroom or like have to work in their bedroom no matter what? Because if not, I don't have to go through those suggestions. Okay. So just if you do, just let me know. I'm happy to give you some ideas for that. So let's get into creating your own going to sleep routine. If you haven't, or if you want to get this digital worksheet that I put together for you, you can scan the QR code or you can just type in your browser bit.ly/going to sleep. And then that should open up a Google Doc. And then you should be able to go to file and then download and just save a copy for yourself. And then you can type away to your heart's content and make changes to it and whatever. This is not a homework assignment, so please do not feel like you have to do this by any stretch. I just wanted to make the next step a little bit easier for you, if if possible. Um, Sorry, give me 1 second. There's like uh, writing all over my thing now, and I don't know how that happened. Okay. Uh, okay, so I don't know if you've got the worksheet open or not, but these are basically the same things that we're going to cover, and we'll just go through them together. What I'm recommending is I'm going to give you ideas of things that I've done or things that I've seen other people do. And you can, my assumption is not that my idea is the right way to do it, but hopefully the ideas that I share will give you ideas that will work for you. And that's really the key here is personalizing this process for yourself because what works for me may not work for you, just like what works for you may not work for me. We're different people. There are things resonate with us differently. So let's start with what we were just talking about, personalizing your space. So one thing that I really enjoy doing to make my evening a little bit easier for myself was I love the beach and I didn't live near the beach. And so what I did was one day when I went to the beach, I brought home some sand and I put it in a stemless wine glass and I put it on my night table. And just for me, like being able to look at the beach at night was really nice. Now, again, that wasn't the difference between a terrible night's sleep and a great night's sleep, but it did, make a small improvement. And that is what I think is really we're trying to do here. We're trying to build enough of these small improvements, enough signals to our nervous system that says, hey, we're safe. Hey, it's okay to go to sleep. It's okay to wind down. And the more that we can incorporate into that, the more likelihood we're going to be able to turn off that fight or flight and turn on our parasympathetic nervous system. So personalize your space, right? Those are some ways that you can do that. People use pictures. Sometimes they'll use, like gifts that they bought on vacation so that it reminds them of the vacation, right? So you kind of look at that every night and kind of just feel that connection. That is so weird that someone is able to do that. Sorry. I'm sorry. It's just distracting the heck out of me. So that's personalizing your space. Control your lighting. So one of the things that I used to do is I used to have Alexa, Amazon's Alexa, control my lights, and I could say like turn on the night lights. And so after a certain time, I just wouldn't turn on overhead lights in my house. I would just turn on the smaller lights or lamps, the softer bulbs, so that my eyes would just get better adjusted to getting ready for sleep. There are different ways that you can do that. Obviously, you can also do that like regular people do and do it manually. Um, but you want to just be thinking about like if light is something that really affects you, and light does it affect me. If light is something that affects you, then doing something to really be more aware of the kind of light that you use, the types, you mean the types of bulbs that you use, for instance. All of that would be something to really consider. If you're particular to scents, so like for a while I really liked peppermint. And so I'd have a little, bottle of peppermint infuser kind of near my bed, and I would just smell it before I went to sleep or put it on a pillow, and it was just a really nice feeling. You can do that with other scents like lavender or chamomile, which can be also calming. Another thing that you could do is also maybe have like hot tea, warm tea, particularly now that it's getting into the colder season for those of you up north, so that that's also something. Obviously, it should be herbal tea, not caffeinated, but something that helps kind of calm your body. Another thing to think about is journaling. And so, you know, I want to kind of emphasize some of this stuff, right? The personalizing your space is really about your bedroom. The lighting can be something that you can do in your entire home. The scents are something that you could start outside your bedroom and then move to your bedroom. Journaling, I'm going to recommend doing it outside your bedroom. You can try it however you want to try it. The idea of putting down your racing thoughts, of addressing your concerns, might be a little bit easier to do outside your bedroom so that when you go into your bedroom, you've kind of left that behind you. But honestly, if it's just easier to do that when you're sitting in bed, then do it sitting in bed. That's again, it's just a matter of finding what works for you. For those of you that really like typing, you can certainly do that digitally, but also I talked earlier about using AI for interactive journaling. So I'm doing a workshop on that in a few weeks. You're welcome to join me for that as well. That's free. And then if you happen to be a ChatGPT Plus subscriber, I've created a custom GPT that is specifically for interactive journaling. And so, that's something you might want to try. I'm happy to send that link to you if you are already a member there. Speaking of technology, we kind of talk about mindful tech use. I mentioned earlier that I still use my phone at night. I read books on my phone. I use the Kindle app. I use the dark screen, the black screen. Have like the soft light on my phone for the entire day. I don't just have it on at night. But I also will not look at the news. I will not look at social media. I won't do like the only two things I quote unquote allow myself to do with my phone when I go to bed are books and word games. And that's it. So that's kind of the way that I've navigated that for myself. Some people really like having a tech curfew where they literally charge the phone in the living room and then they go to bed and that's that. That just doesn't work for me. But that's the thing, right? Again, it's like I want you to find what works for you and be able to build this customized list that way. Another thing I forgot to mention is that the other thing I want you to think about is like as you're building this list, I want you to think about it as a portfolio of options. You may not use all of them all at once, right? That would be a lot, right? You may not use something from every single thing here, but we have bad nights where it's more difficult to sleep than others. It'd be nice to have a list of things that you could refer to if the normal stuff isn't making a difference. And the truth is, over time, this changes. And so, what works for me now may not have worked for me before. And certainly, what worked for me before isn't working for me anymore. And that's why I had to find other things, right? So just because once you figure it out doesn't mean that's it. So it's good to have a list to refer to and be able to think about, oh, right, okay, so this one's not working anymore. Maybe I'll try this and I'll add this in as well. Another thing you could think about is movement. And so this is gentle stretching, some light yoga. I don't know if you've ever done Tai Chi. I did Tai Chi for a while and absolutely loved it. I actually really miss it. It's something this workshop has gotten me thinking a lot about. And it's it's not about the physical activity as much as the connectedness with your body and the slow, intentional movements that allows you to help wind down and relax a little bit more. Certainly, thinking about sound and audio is really important when it comes to developing your own wind down routine. All of the major sleep. I mean, all the major music apps, Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, etc., they all have sleep genres. They all have nature sounds and white noise and brown noise and green noise and red noise, whatever it is, right? So there all of those options, explore those. Like for me right now, Apple Music has a spa radio station and I don't know what it is, but I just enjoy it. And so I listen to that every night before I go to sleep. Where it's like I love the sound of the ocean. It doesn't help me fall asleep though. I've tried it many times. It doesn't work. Um, One thing that I think is really helpful are audiobooks or sleep podcasts. I am very particular to audiobooks, and I'm gonna really want to just emphasize why. And so we're going to talk a little bit about like the challenges of not being able to sleep. And one of the like real fixes for me is audiobooks. And I have a few narrators that I really like. And there's something about their voice that I just helps me, particularly when my brain is racing, right? And so what I'll do is I'll put on an audiobook. I usually put on an audiobook of something I've already read so I know what's going to happen, so I'm not too worried about it, or a book that I don't really care that much about. And I just listen to it. I put it on for a certain amount of time and then I have it turn off. And I find that it allows my brain to focus on this one thing. And before I know it, I'm either asleep or at least I'm resting. And that's really key. And I'll talk about that again in a moment. But just because we can't sleep doesn't mean we can't get rest. And for me, listening to an audiobook really helps at least the rest of my body to get some rest, even if I'm not fully asleep. And that it makes a difference for me in the next day. One thing that I also really suggest are Bluetooth sleep masks. I'm a huge fan of these. You can get them anywhere. I usually get them on Amazon. Um, there are like different kinds. I like the ones that are really thick. They really do block out the light, but they have speakers on the sides. And when you lay on I'm a side sleeper. So when I lay on my side, it doesn't bother me because there's some cushion there. But then I can listen to whatever I want and nobody cares. So if you sleep with someone else, it's good to have something like that where you can still listen to your music and or audiobooks or whatever it is without disturbing anybody else. And then of course there's reading. So fiction books are really good. I like things that kind of take me away from my life. So I read a lot of science fiction. So it's just like, oh, I'm in like another world in the future, and it's just like feels so far off, and it's really great. Again, I don't do social media. I won't look at news. I won't read a serial killer book before I go to bed. I won't listen to a serial killer audiobook, things like that. I'm a little hyper sensitive to those things at night, and I've decided that it's not worth it. Again, that may not matter for you, but if it does, it's something to think about. So, what I'm hoping is that by the end of this, you've got some things that you can try, maybe this evening even, as you begin to think about your process for winding down. But what about when it all doesn't quite work, right? I could be the best workshop facilitator on the planet, and you could be the most amazing workshop attendees, and we're still going to have trouble. So, what do we do when we have difficult nights? I think one of the most challenging, frustrating, difficult periods for people when they're having trouble sleeping is the self-talk that happens. So there's a lot of this negative self-talk around sleep. I can't sleep again. What's wrong with me? I'm failing at something as basic as sleeping, right? I should be asleep by now. Tomorrow is going to be a disaster if I don't get some sleep, right? All of that only activates our fight or flight response. It activates our sympathetic nervous system because it creates additional stress and tension, and that's what gets us going. And so what I'm going to urge to you is really think about self-compassion, right? Of course, you're going to have the thought, I'm going to be a mess tomorrow if I don't get some sleep. But using your awareness, right? You hear that in your head and you go, okay, tomorrow may not be the best day of my life. I have survived other nights when I haven't slept. I will survive this night. I will survive nights in the future when I haven't slept. All that matters right now is that I take care of myself. Is there something that I need that would help me? Is there something I can do? And all I need to worry about right now is just getting some rest. And let's start with that. Self-compassion, there's real good research behind self-compassion and the fact that it activates the parasympathetic nervous system and it helps turn off the sympathetic, the fight or flight response. So just because you have the thought doesn't mean that you then need to keep thinking about the thought of I can't sleep again. You hear it, you go, okay, but I'm going to be kind to myself. I'm going to be gentle with myself. And I'm going to remind myself that I've gotten through this before and I will get through this again. That is what I do. A few more things to think about when you have those rough nights, particularly if you wake up in the middle of the night. Try implementing a station stop in the middle of the night, particularly one that you really enjoy. So maybe that's some deep breathing. Try a breathing exercise. Excuse me, try try a breathing exercise. Maybe some light stretching. Again, light stretching. Try not to turn on the lights if you don't have to. Um, my favorite is distraction. I find that is one of the most powerful things that I learned about myself, which is, again, finding an audiobook and listening to an audiobook. And it helps my brain turn off a little bit. So at least even if I can't fall asleep, my body gets more rest. Be compassionate with yourself, speak kindly to yourself, and try not to put any pressure on yourself and return to bed slowly. You're going to fall asleep when you fall asleep, right? I I just spent an hour talking to you about how to help get better sleep, but it's how to help get better sleep. If I knew how to get you to sleep perfectly, I wouldn't be doing this for $10, right? I would be rich somewhere living on a yacht, probably in the middle of the ocean, right? Like if we knew how to absolutely get to sleep, we would all be doing it. But we don't because it's not something we have full control over. So when you have trouble, remember, this is not because you're doing something wrong. Maybe it's because your body needs something, right? Maybe there was a little too much emotional distress during the day. Maybe you didn't have as many station stops as you normally do. Maybe it just the day was too much. And even everything that you normally do is just not enough because it was too much. All of that is okay. So just trying to remember in that moment to be kind and gentle with yourself. So it's going to be hard for you to implement station stops today as the day is pretty much over. So don't worry about that part. Maybe that's something you can start thinking about tomorrow. But you could still maybe try some of the wind down activities that you put together and just, be a little bit more conscious about what you're feeling when you go to sleep or you go to bed and be reminding yourself about being safe. One great self-compassion tool is to place a hand on your heart and maybe say something about how you're safe, maybe take a few breaths, just anything that you can do again to signal your nervous system that it's okay to wind down, that it's okay to let everything go and just get some rest. And then if you wake during the night, try one of the things that we've talked about. Again, I'm partial to distraction, but whatever you think is going to work for you, that's what you want to try. I thought we would try a quick moment of mindfulness meditation, just so you have a feel for that if you haven't tried it before. So if you'd like, you can close your eyes and just follow the sound of my voice. You don't have to read anything that's on the screen. So just start by taking a deep breath. Sit and know you're sitting, as in be aware that you are sitting. Feel where your body contacts the chair. Feel your feet on the floor. Take another deep breath. breathe in and be aware that you're breathing in. This is one of your 20 to 25,000 breaths today. And breathe out and know you're breathing out. Feel the air leaving your lungs. On your next breath, start counting. So you breathe in, breathe out, one. Breathe in, breathe out, two. Breathe in, breathe out. Let's do that to 10. Breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. As you're breathing in, you may find that your mind wanders. And the truth of the matter is, that's okay. That's what your mind does. Our minds wander. That's what they're built to do. All you got to do is be aware of it, notice it, say, oh, look at that. I got distracted. And then bring yourself back to the counting. If you can't remember what number you were at, that's okay. We're not keeping score. Start at one again. Breathe in, breathe out. Every time you get distracted, notice and bring yourself back. The goal of mindfulness meditation is not to avoid distraction, because that's what we do. Our brains think we get distracted. The goal is to be aware of the distraction and then bring ourselves back. Let's breathe a few more times together. In, out. In, out. In, out. And whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. Well, I hope you have sweet dreams tonight. Just remember that what we've been talking about tonight, getting a good night's sleep, is really all about self-care. And so be patient with yourself, practice compassion, and trust your body. Okay, so I'm going to go through a few things and then I'll take any questions that you might have, and then we'll wrap up. So if you like my workshop, I hope you don't mind taking a moment to rate and review it wherever you came from. I want to share 5 potential steps of how you might be able to work with me if that's something that you want to do. First, let's talk about upcoming workshops. All these workshops are free, so you're obviously welcome to attend however you'd like. Next 2 weeks from today, I believe this is, I'm going to be talking about emotional time travel, triggers, anchors, and staying present. So this is really, I'm excited about this one because I love uh, helping people understand emotional triggers and how to deal with them. So that is in 2 weeks. And then, excuse me, the week after that, I'm going to be talking about cognitive behavioral therapy. So change your thoughts, change your life, and how Stoicism helped create CBT. And then on November 20th, which is a month from now, just about, I'll be doing interactive journaling with AI, tools for self-awareness and growth. And then after Thanksgiving, which is crazy that we're already into December, I'll be doing another trauma workshop, this one focusing on internal family systems, healing from trauma by working with your parts. And then just before the holidays, I'll be doing a workshop on emotional management to help you handle your feelings during the holidays. All workshops are free for 30 days. Obviously, this workshop will be free for you for your entire as long as I can host it somewhere. But most of my free workshops are available for 30 days. And then after that, they're part of what I'm calling Strength Studio, which I'll talk about in a second. So then I mentioned these three starter guides. So there's the self-care guide for people who don't know where or why to start, the rewriting your inner scripts, a starter guide to self-awareness, and a no pressure guide to getting started with mindfulness meditation. These are three guides. They're free. Um, you're welcome to use them or not use them. The links are here. My website is buildonyourstrengths.com. So buildonyourstrengths.com/free guides, free dash guides, or you can scan the QR code. I do work with individuals. And so if that's something that you might be interested in, I have a free 30-minute clarity call. It's basically like a mini session, and you get a chance to kind of feel what it's like to talk to me and hear what I might say. It's absolutely no pressure. I won't even let you schedule with me. If you decide after 30 minutes that you think I'm the best person in the world, I'm still going to ask you to pause and I'll send you an email with my calendar link and it'll give you a chance to really think about it. And if you'd like to schedule with me, obviously I'd love to work with you, but I'm very hyper aware of pressure and I don't want to start our relationship like that. I have something called Strength Studios, which is where I put a lot of my more in-depth content. And I'm not sure if you were aware, but by joining this workshop, because you paid for it, I'm giving you a 25% discount code. The code is simply self-care. And that is anything that you want to purchase, not just something about self-care. So there's recorded workshops, which are workshops on self-care, IFS scripts, self-compassion. You can look at the sleep one, but I wouldn't do it. This one is a lot better than that one, so don't worry about it. There are collections that you can look at, some around AI, some around inner scripts, some around self-care and emotional resilience. I've also put together some specialty workbooks. And so the one I think you might be most interested in is the self-care workbook, which is how to understand, practice, and sustain real care. Here's the link for that. I'm going to just talk a little bit about the self-care collection because I think it might be interesting for you. So it includes the self-care is more than meditation workshop recording. It includes the free guide that I mentioned earlier. It includes three short reads, short articles, The Truth About Self-Care, The Power of Grounding Ourselves, and Do You Feel Weighed Down by Life? So those three go into some other components of self-care. And then the self-care workbook, How to Understand, Practice, and Sustain Real Self-Care, is over 35 pages, and it just kind of walks you through a lot of things for you to know, but also practices and exercises that you can do that will help you build a real self-care practice. It's $37 before your 25% discount. Again, no pressure on any of this. These are the individual coaching options. I do individual coaching. I do session, like set series. I do intensives. If this is something you're interested in, just send me an email. And then if you work for an organization that cares about mental health and well-being, I do workshops for companies. And I also offer membership to Strength Studio. So if that's something you think your company might be interested in, I'd be happy to, give them a discount if you want to make a connection there. Otherwise, you'll get this. This is just more information about me. You can see that later. I will stop sharing and see if you have any questions. Do you have any questions? If you don't, that's okay, but I'm here to answer them. Well, okay then. That sounds good. So thank you very much. I appreciate you. First of all, I appreciate you paying to join. I hope this was worth it for you. I again will send tomorrow. I will send you the workshop recording, assuming that that worked. I will send you the slide deck that we worked through. I'll share the digital worksheet on building your own going to sleep routine. And I'll probably send you some other links as well. If you don't get it by midday, just reach out to me and let me know, and I will make sure you get it. Otherwise, thank you so much. It was really great to spend the evening with you. And I hope you have a good night's sleep. Okay. Take care, everybody.